Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is Executive Editor Ryan McQuade, and I'm just giving you all a heads up on this week's episode of Director Watch. We did have some technical issues, much like we did a couple weeks ago on the Awards Watch podcast with some audio, so please be patient with us. It was just this episode and that other episode that were compromised, but still doesn't mean that we didn't provide you what we think is a really great episode and a wonderful way to end this Todd Haynes movie series talking about Dark Waters. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an Awards Watch podcast that attempts to get inside the minds of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we also go on a few tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at Awards Watch. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
Can it be? Say it ain't so. The final episode of our Todd Haynes series. We're talking Dark Waters.
Ooh. Murky.
What a fascinating film. I mean, this is weird, kind of a forgotten movie, weirdly ignored when it came out. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to talk about, but sad to see Todd Haynes go. But when it comes to this movie, love to see him walk away.
Well, I mean, Haynes, we will see later this year, and we will do an episode on May, December. We will come back and talk about his latest release, which is Netflix, right?
In the words of Jack from Lost, we have to go back.
Oh my God. Okay. See, you're already off the rails today. But yeah, a movie that in 2019 kind of, released in theaters and people may have seen it.
Extent of it.
And that was it. And nobody talked about it. So it'll be very fascinating to talk about it here today. And Jay, we won't be alone. Joining us today, she is our Awards Watch teammate with us here. That's Nicole Ackman. Nicole, welcome to Director Watch.
I'm so excited to be here.
Nicole, you ready to
waters?
Yeah, you ready to get into the dark waters?
Oh, hell yeah! I'm ready to swim in some dark waters.
You don't want to get into technically these dark waters for medical purposes.
I mean,
no.
The figurative dark waters.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Just
the
want to make
dark
sure.
Waters, definitely not.
For the listeners out there, we're not actually in a swimming pool of the water that is contaminated within this community. Otherwise, we would.
Cool. First podcast ever recorded in a swimming pool.
I don't think so.
That is what film Twitter feels like, though. Sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's more of a cesspool, more than a swimming pool, if that makes sense. But yeah, we're here to talk about Todd Haynes, at least for a little bit now, for the last time. And yeah, Jay, it's kind of bittersweet. It already feels like we started and now we're already ending a series, but we've got a couple more still to come out.
We did start and now we are ending it. You are correct about that. That is the reality.
God damn it. All right, cool. But no, it just feels like we started literally last week.
I know. It has gone by fast. It's felt so short.
Yeah, but also some great cinema along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Potentially this one, too, based off of our reactions to it. And the movie, of course, Dark Waters, which was released in 2019, and, of course, it's directed by Todd Haynes, and it stars Mark Ruffalo and Anne Hathaway, Bill Pullman, Tim Robbins, Bill Camp, Victor Garber, Mara Winningham, a bunch of other people. The movie, of course, is about a corporate defense attorney who takes on an environmental lawsuit against a chemical company that exposes a lengthy history of pollution. And so 2 hours and 6 minutes of nothing but people potentially, Jay, being good at their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really happy film.
Yeah.
About it's so
really
funny.
Wraps up with a bow,
God, it wraps up in a gunshot to the forehead is what it wraps up in. But
yeah,
it's a fascinating movie that is very reminiscent of these other types of movies that you're talking about, Ryan. I love a movie that is about people being good at their jobs, but I've got a lot of kind of comparison points to some of the best examples of those films and how this differs from those movies, because it is such a unique twist on that weird little subgenre that has been developed over many, many years.
Well, Jay, before we get into your rabbit hole of comparisons there.
We'll get there.
I know we'll get there. Nicole, I am curious, your relationship with Todd Haynes as a director, what you think of his films, the style in which he directs these really wonderful films that we've talked about in this movie series, and your relationship with Dark Waters, why you chose this one of all films to do, and what are your thoughts then on Dark Waters?
Absolutely. So I have not seen all of Todd Haynes' filmography, but obviously I love Carol, like every other, queer girl out there.
Yeah, that's that is the big one, right? Of his filmography, that's the legacy one, right? It's Carol.
I feel like it is.
Certainly for people of a certain age.
I also think Carol is like the one that people have posters of. You know what I mean? Like,
that is a good poster.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the best posters of all time.
It's hot.
If you ask me.
It's the Fight Club of its era. People put it in their dorm rooms. They go crazy for it.
No,
but you can talk about this one as opposed to whatever movie you just mentioned. I don't know what you said.
Don't talk about Carol. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah. First rule of Carol.
She'll give you a stare right into your soul, and then it'll haunt you forever. So.
But honestly, I wanted to talk about Dark Waters for two reasons. One is that I had actually seen, and this is kind of embarrassing, but I'd seen part of this movie. My parents are big fans of this movie.
Really?
And so I had watched like the middle 2/3 of it, maybe. Like I missed the very beginning and the very end before with them, and then like had to go do something and didn't get to see the end of it. So I was like, well, this is the perfect excuse to watch like the whole film and get those bits that I was missing. But they watch it like regularly. Like it's saved on the DVR at my parents' house.
So this is like
so I was excited for that.
This is in the rotation. Because everybody has movies that are in the rotation.
Exactly, and this is one of theirs. And I will say,
it's a crazy movie to have in the rotation.
That is
kidding.
Oh, come on, we all have a bleak movie probably that's in our rotation, right?
Oh, like to be fair, the movie at the top of my parents' rotation is Castaway. So like, it's not like we're looking for cheery films.
That's a rough movie to watch too.
Gone Girl is probably in my rotation.
Yeah. I can't
like
tell you the amount of times,
at least.
Yeah.
The amount of times I watched Castaway as like a child, because it was high up in my parents' rotation.
It's a good movie.
I'm still like
I saw that in theaters. I remember seeing that in theaters.
I can't even imagine that.
So I saw it in theaters, and that was before you had seats together. You could buy seats together, so you had to like get there. And so my dad sat at the bottom, and I sat by myself at the top. And I was like,
"Oh my god!"
When that movie came out, 2000. So I was like 8, and I sat there, and I was just like, I was like a mess by the end of it because I was like, he lost Wilson.
Okay,
and a tooth.
That's true.
Which is worse, the tooth or Wilson?
Wilson.
The tooth
you can't get back. Yeah, you can't get back.
No, but that moment in the movie is brutal.
Yeah, that's rough. That's brutal.
Well, that's the thing. That moment just feels more like stomach turning.
Yeah.
Whereas the Wilson thing hits you like in the
hugely
gut.
The thing that breaks my heart,
emotional.
I know we're completely already off topic, but the thing in Castaway that always breaks my heart is when he's after the party, when everybody leaves and he ends up sleeping on the floor because
oh my god, yes,
because the hard surface is what he's used to.
Here's a question: God. Is Bill Camp in Dark Water sort of the Wilson of the movie?
Good way to turn it around, Jay.
That was great.
Trying to get us back on topic.
I know, but
no, I did have two other reasons I wanted to watch this. One is that I am hugely team Mark Ruffalo is one of our underrated treasures, because I think that, and I feel like maybe this is tied to him being in Marvel films, that I feel like kind of everyone has forgotten that he is a consistent actor who always gives at the very least a decent performance and sometimes turns out something quite special. But also I did have another reason, which is that I had seen Jay's review on Letterboxd, and I was like, almost every one of my friends on Letterboxd gave this movie like a 7 out of 10, like a 3.5 stars. Everyone's like, good movie, does what it's meant to do. And then Jay is like, I pledge allegiance to Dark Waters.
I wake up every morning, I put my hand over my heart and I say, Dark Waters, we salute you. And then I go to work.
So I wanted to get to talk about it with you because I was like, I want to hear your take on it. But I also, this movie is so interesting to me because I have a college friend who had DuPont as a client at one point.
Oh man.
And we had long talks about the ethics of DuPont at that time. So yeah, I think the whole topic is fascinating. And
what was their take?
Oh, basically that they are like a hugely corrupt company and can never come back from what they've done. Which was great. But there's a reason we're not naming names here. But I watching it again, I really was struck by how just like well crafted it is, but also it manages to get in so much information and not, I feel like often whenever you have a quite like dense movie like this, they dumb everything down in it and make it sort of revolve more around like emotional beats to get you sort of out of the actual specifics. And I feel like this film does a really good job of, obviously there are emotional beats in it, but they're quite tied into the actual true story that they're telling. And I think they do a really good job of sort of laying things out in a way that you can understand it without it feeling like they've sanitized the content at all. I mean, obviously they're not sanitizing what occurred here, but I think they do a really good job too of sort of showing everything that occurs without it coming off as like too preachy or too like do-goody, which I think is sometimes difficult in movies like this where, you know, those sort of lawyer tries to fix problem films. So I'm really impressed by it. I don't love it as much as Jay does because I don't think anyone does, but I'm very excited to discuss.
Fair point. Fair point.
And no, but I love that. We all deserve to have our movies that we love more than everyone else.
This was in my, I think it might have been in my top 5 of that year. And
it was
you're so right about this film not caving to kind of the tendencies that movies like this do, which is to go broadly emotional with it. And this film gets really into the weeds as far as the science of the situation, but that's what makes it so scary, is the fact that it's obviously very complicated on a chemical level, but the effects of those chemicals are so straightforward that it just hits you like a ton of bricks. I mean, this movie is terrifying, and it is a film, Nicole, you're right, one of those where there is nothing worse than a quote unquote important movie that thinks it's quote unquote important. And this is an important movie, but it's also a movie that plays it does play like a thriller, but a horror thriller. And I really appreciate its unwillingness to become this very commercial enterprise, but it's so crazy that this movie even got through the studio system. This is a grade A example of what people talk about when they say we used to get movies like this, because we did used to get movies like this. And there are movies that you can very easily compare to this film. The ones that immediately sprang to mind, The Insider and Aaron Brockovich, were the ones to me that, those are pretty straightforward comparisons. And Aaron Brockovich is an interesting comparison because it's a very similar story. It's about poison water supply, but that movie is very much like heroic. That's all about the heroics of the situation. And at the end of the day with that film, we're rooting for Aaron Brockovich because she got this huge raise and this big payout. And in this film, it's like, this is freaking Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill, and it's going to keep falling down after him at every turn. And Ruffalo plays that exhaustion so fantastically. I'm with you. We're going to do a Ruffalo corner at some point, because he's certainly one of our more underrated performers, and he takes on really challenging roles.
Yeah.
He also takes on roles in these quote unquote important movies. I mean, I was waiting for him to bust out the "they knew" speech from Spotlight, and he kind of does at the end. He's like, "The system is rigged." And he does have that kind of bigger speech at the end, but that was, this is I hadn't watched this movie since it came out, but the thing I might have remembered more than anything, and maybe it's just because it's at the end of the movie, was that final exchange between Hathaway and Ruffalo outside of Benihana, because it does come after this moment of perceived victory. It's like, oh, we finally did it. And then it's like, no, you didn't really do it, and you're never really going to do it, because what good is really coming from beating DuPont on the scale that you're beating DuPont? Because I mean, they say it early in the film, Teflon is making them $1 billion a year, and they're paying out a lot of money. $264 million in payouts at the end of the day sounds astronomical, but for DuPont, it's like they got a mosquito bite and it hurt for a second, and then they smash the mosquito and move forward. And it is this reflection on the monolithic danger of huge corporatism, and that idea that you can literally litigate someone into submission is such a horrifying idea. This idea that I have more money than you, I can pay lawyers longer than you can pay lawyers, and you're just going to have to give up. And that's a scary idea, a really scary idea.
It really is. And I think it sort of is, made even worse by the fact that we're watching this movie. And oftentimes, whenever you have this kind of movie, it's about an issue that sort of doesn't affect you in any way. But I think most of us, at least people who are like really old enough to be watching this film, like we had Teflon in our homes. Yeah. And so even, though we're not sort of seeing the effects like the people in this town are, we're aware of the fact that like the culprit was in our houses. And I think that makes it scarier too. But like you said, it sort of is this thing that it really is examining the way that capitalism dooms our legal system and prevents justice from being able to be found. And I think really what makes this film stand apart from other films, like you were saying, is that, it's not an Aaron Brockovich, in that at the end of it, we're not like,
Aaron Brockovich rocks, by the way. Let's be clear.
Yeah, and that's, obviously there's a time and a place for that sort of movie, but I think that this is interesting because it's almost like a riff off of that form of film. Yeah. And that at the end, we're not like, woohoo, they did it. We're like, oh my God, like no matter into what
a puddle. And
like no matter what you win in this situation, it's never enough, and it can never undo sort of, everything that you've just seen. Because I mean, even if there was a way to actually win against DuPont, you still have to reckon with what all of this has told us about our American legal system and the way that corporations can take advantage of it. And yeah, it's a deeply depressing film.
It is. It really, really is. And I mean, I think about one of the great end credit cards ever is PFOA/C8 has been discovered to be in nearly every living organism on the planet and 99% of humans, which is just like, and then there's this idea at the end of the film where you get paid when you can prove that you've been afflicted with one of the illnesses that this C8 causes. And so it's like, hey, the worst thing imaginable happened to me. Give me my check, please. And it's that, I mean, it's sort of reminiscent of that that line in Fight Club, to draw another completely out of left field comparison to this movie, but
I did not expect that one to come.
But in Fight Club, where he's talking about being an actuary, and he's talking about, well, what's more cost efficient? Is it recalling all of these cars, or is it more cost efficient to have these people die and pay out the lawsuits that occur because of those deaths? And it just really is that examination of the bottom line that drives everything that these companies are doing. And it's one of the most disturbing things imaginable, is this idea that you can completely cast your sense of empathy aside in the interest of shareholders and stakeholders.
Yeah.
And there's that wonderful scene in the courtroom where they're like, so who are the stakeholders in this study? Oh, well, it was, me, some other scientists. Of course, DuPont was involved. Excuse me? What? Yeah. You're saying they were self-auditing? That's how this was going? And it's just, the power that they wield because of the money they have is just, it's crazy. And DuPont has sort of been, they've come under fire in a lot of movies in recent years. Yeah. They've been public enemy number one.
I don't think they're very popular, Jay. Core public opinion.
I would say not. I mean, the one thing I knew them from growing up was they sponsored Jeff Gordon's race car.
No, good.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was the one thing I knew about them when I was younger.
They did.
Yeah,
number 20, the 24 car.
Number 24. Yep. They definitely did that.
Sure
yeah, this movie is terrifying. And I remember, I just want to go back, do a little time machine with Jay. I remember when I first saw this movie, and Jay and I talked about it that year. I didn't really like it. I was kind of like, it feels very paint by numbers. And the number one thing I kept saying throughout that, time that we were talking about it, Jay, which was, why did Todd Haynes direct this? That was the number one thing I kept saying, like, why? Why did he do it?
There are so many amazing Todd Haynes, like 30 seconds that no one else would do in this movie that we'll get to. But it is about the afflicted, the people, the suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very much what this movie is about, and how the disregard that this corporation had for the people only dominoed into the decimation of that community when they left. It's such a weird, horrifying, cascading. No, thank you. It's awful.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Though on this rewatch, Jay, I think this movie is really great.
It's a ripper.
It's really good. Because the context in which watching movies in the series, particularly I think watching something like Safe, really felt like, oh, that's why he wanted to make it. Safe is very much like about, disease and sort of spreading of that and the terror of it, corporate caused disease, the manufactured of the normal things in life.
Industry.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the fact that, like, being normalized in that movie can lead to your downfall. And the normal things in this movie, which are
the
pots and
we
pans,
accept.
Yeah,
it's so crazy.
Pots and pans in this movie.
I mean, people would always joke about Teflon Don, like, oh, it slid off him like Teflon.
Yeah. And then you watch it and you're like, oh,
haha, it's going to kill
us all. That we've all used it and still use it. Get rid of your pots and pans, folks. I mean, I was just, I don't know. Maybe also too, because, and Jay knows this, and I think you know this too, Nicole. I'm a big fan of a movie like All the President's Men, and big fan of a movie like The Insider. Big fan of all these great, like, political conspiracy theory movies, as well as also process movies in general. Yes. And so when I saw this movie, I don't know, just Ryan at the time was like not maybe 4:00 in the afternoon kind of screening in 2019. Ryan just was like not into it, but like put this baby on 4 years later. This movie's terrifying. This movie's just absolutely terrifying. Lockman's cinematography is bleak and bleak
Incredible.
because the whole situation is bleak. Yeah, the whole movie looks like it's on bypass.
I truly think this is one of the greatest implementations of digital cinematography ever.
I don't disagree. And I think from the get-go, I mean, we're gonna talk about Ruffalo, but the MVP for me of this movie is Bill Camp. Bill Camp.
Bill Camp. I mean, let's
extraordinary in this movie.
Let's go to summer camp.
This man is coming in with an accent that just I can't even describe it. Children, if you're listening out there with your parents, go hear Bill Camp's accent in this movie and tell me if you didn't need the subtitles.
Those brows, though.
Oh, those brows. I mean, dude, this is every sequence with him has to just be the most devastating thing you've ever seen in your life. Your heart just breaks for him, his family, his cows. For Christ's sake, it's some of the most terrifying things ever. What the cow and the dog and the way in which the VHS, when he hands him over to Ruffalo and he's watching the VHS tapes of what he's uncovered, and it's absolutely truly disgusting and terrifying.
Y'all, I watched this with my sister who works at a dairy farm.
Yeah, that probably made her want to take a couple of days off of work, right?
Probably went.
Yeah, to say that she was horrified is the understatement of the century, honestly. Like, and I think that it does a really good job, though, of sort of making sure that we cannot avoid the consequences of what we are sort of seeing and discussing. And that, I think that it's one of those times where the shock factor of that gore of what happened to these like animals is so necessary, because it both like completely justifies everything that Ruffalo's character is going to do throughout the rest of the film, and sort of the passion that Bill Camp's character is bringing to this, but it also makes us immediately sort of invested in it because we've seen that horror up close.
Gore
maybe closer than we wanted to.
Yeah, it doesn't play like a Saw movie when you see Bill Camp show the livers of these cows, the jaws of these cows that he's taken out just as evidence. It's jaw-dropping, not like shut your eyes and
exactly.
Yeah. And I mean,
turn away. It's not a jump scare.
Yeah, it's not. And I just Ruffalo, Jay, at the time, I think you were really big on Ruffalo. And I think I was a little bit lesser on Ruffalo. I was a little like, for Ruffalo's sake, I was like,
oh, you're saying in this movie specifically?
Yeah, I was a little lesser on him. But man, I'm telling you, the rewatch just changed everything.
He's got a lot of business in this movie.
I mean,
I think effective business, but he's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think also too the fact that this was coming off of a couple of years after Spotlight, and knowing that Ruffalo was in it, it felt like are we, it was missing something there or whatnot. But then just me being dumb at the time and not thinking that this movie was better than what it was. But I just think of when they bring all the Discovery into the office and he's just going through those boxes. It reminded me so much of All the President's Men when they are at the Library of Congress and they're going through the stacks of everything, just one by one, and then that crane shot where it just I'm talking about, Jay, where it just kind of lifts up on him and it's just the two of them and everything there. There's just the shots of him from behind here going through this mountain of evidence, but then also too the fact that this is like these are all friends, and it all started with like his grandmother reaching out to him through these guys and everything. And then I mean, Nicole's guy, my guy, Victor Garber, being a slime ass ball in this movie. He's so terrible. And
Yes.
all of that confrontation are happening at these galas, are happening at these places that the people that are getting affected by are never going to be able to get into these rooms. And so I find the economic, social economic stature of how all this is happening to be really fascinating too. All these deals or all these questions are being asked in these ballrooms by guys that think that they're invincible, in which you can't ask those questions. And he's got to know that Rob's going to go and talk to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
At this place. And he's been dodging him, and they're going to go to this place, and he's just breaking norms left and right. And, you know, another person that knocks it kind of out of the park is Tim Robbins. I think he's really great in this.
Complicated character.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
Very much like dude, like stop killing this firm, but also like that's his buddy, that's his friend.
Well, he's the great middle ground where he's like,
great equalizer.
My job is to make money, but oh my god, this is
the
disastrous.
Worst. I can't believe we attached inhumane. It's essentially like, we want to make money, but I cannot believe we attached ourselves to this company. And like there's that giant speech in the boardroom, like where he's one of the lawyers is questioning whether Rob should continue going down there. He's like, I had a vote here, this is my company, my name's on the door. And he has one of those kind of moments. Robbins gets the moment here, not really
he gets the big moment, and he's like, we're lawyers, we should be fighting for this, like this is it's a great speech by Robbins. Robbins can be great, and I think he's actually pretty great in this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
He's so good at towing that line, and he looks so corporate, and then his ability to kind of subvert that look and that expectation and become in some ways the soul of the side that Ruffalo is fighting is really impressive.
Oh yeah.
The thing that I really appreciate too, to go back to about Victor Garber in this movie, is that, I mean, first of all, Victor Garber, I feel like, picks roles where he is either like the best man that has ever been or the worst.
Yeah, he's and then he saw an Alias, and he's kind of a guy in between.
Yeah, like, he said one time I will be in between.
Yeah, one time, and it's like the performance of his life, for Christ's sake.
This role truly feels like he did his prep work for this, playing Professor Callahan in Legally Blonde. Like this is the hilarious type of evil corporate that he represents in that, in the fact that he just truly does not care.
In your office, you're dodging me.
Yeah. And I think what is great too is that he perfectly embodies that sort of, because I think we all know what that looks like in the abstract, and he embodies it without it taking it too far into it feeling stereotypy or not having sort of that chilling power, to the point that there is still something quite like you feel this power that he has, and the fact that Robert has stepped out of line and in bringing this to these sort of galas and everything. But it also, I think, speaks to the sort of boys club that we're seeing, that this world is made up of.
He acts annoyed. He's not like furious. He's at the beginning anyway, he's just like, oh my god, I know we're gonna squash you like a bug, let's just get through this. This is unbelievable that you're like, I'm going on vacation tomorrow, can you shut up?
It's not even like that. It's mostly just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll get you the files. Like, you're not gonna, you're just curious, aren't you?
Yeah, this is cute that you're pursuing this.
Oh, isn't it's like, isn't this guy cute? Let me go get you a beer. And then at the end of it, it's like, dude, get out of my goddamn face. You really want to take us out, like you're saying, Jay?
Yeah. At first, it's like, oh yeah, absolutely. There's nothing you're gonna find, and then it's like,
I'll buy you a steak dinner.
Really good lawyer. I'm gonna, it just ratchets up and ratchets up and ratchets up.
His face in the courtroom when they, I guess, get the first when they get to study, right? His face
is that when Pullman comes in?
Yeah. Oh God.
Kentucky Fried Pullman.
Kentucky Fried Pullman. I mean, my God, he's so good in this movie.
He's so good.
It's kind of insane how stupid good
he just comes in chucking 3-pointers.
I say we're gonna win this case.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's so good.
Can we talk about one performance though in this movie that we haven't mentioned yet? And I still am on the fence.
Hath?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking.
So here's my take. She has 5 potent moments in this movie. And if it was anybody but Anne Hathaway and you weren't like, oh, well, why is an actress with this much weight playing this role? There are little flourishes in this movie that remind you, and I think it was only because we were watching all of these Haynes movies in succession that I realized it, but there's the moment where they're talking to the woman that used to work at DuPont who talks about, we couldn't have our third child, and Hathaway's emotional response to that and the way that she goes out of her way to say I'm so sorry in that moment, I think is so powerful. And that she is really that source of female grounding, the anchoring to kind of that female perspective that Haynes has been so fascinated by with so many of his films. And there's just like a half dozen little moments that I think a lesser performer wouldn't be able to capture as well as she's able to. Granted, sure, still, I mean, it's crazy that Anne Hathaway plays that role, but maybe Anne Hathaway just wanted to be in a Todd Haynes movie. I don't know. I'm sure she didn't get her full rate for this.
I'm sure nobody did. But I don't know. Nicole, what do you think of Hathaway in this?
I mean, it's hard because it definitely is a role that already sort of as written veers into a territory that I wouldn't necessarily expect from a Todd Haynes movie, like for the main female role. I feel like to me it sort of is fine because the movie is so focused on the process and everything. Like it really is just his personal life is not the main focus of any of this. This isn't like a movie about the man who did this case. It's a movie about this case, which helps me sort of overlook it. I do think it veers into like a little bit of a like, did Anne Hathaway like not have the full script? Like, and I think that she does a good job with what she's given to sort of work with here. I don't like dislike her performance per se. But it's also like not one of my favorite performances of hers either.
It's like a it's like a performance for me that like, man, I just wish it's still the part of the film that I'm just like, it just doesn't work. And maybe it's
totally overqualified for it, but
I don't think she works with Ruffalo. To me,
no.
For me, I think that
I
like
think so. I think her kind of angst of being a former lawyer shines through, and especially in that scene where she's in the kitchen and she's just like, you've been despondent for years. Do you want to talk about our life for once? Do you want to do that?
I think that scene's not like, I think that's a little like, I've been pushed into the wife in the kitchen role. And
well, there's the other great line I think she has, which I really love, when he's in the hospital and she says, "Don't talk to me like I'm a wife."
Yeah,
I think that's a great line.
I think that scene where she's going up against Robbins, I think that scene where she's in the car with him, I think you're right. I think in that scene when like that guy comes after them at the restaurant, like when they're eating burgers or whatever at that one restaurant, and she's like,
that part is devastating.
Yeah, that part is like really devastating, but then also terrifying. So the way that her face is looking, you watch just her facial reactions in that, and then when she's trying to get the boys to get all their stuff and get out of there, it's like little great moments. I think that she kind of does a better version of this performance, but there's just more for her to do. I think in that film, it's like a movie that I don't think is better than this is like her performance in Armageddon Time is much more realized as a character, even though she's playing there's more, but there's more emotional connection there with that character and her husband and her kids, and you have the Hawkins stuff there, but it just feels like it's more nuanced, even though she probably has an equal amount of screen time, equal amount of dialogue and everything there too. It's not a knock, but it's also something like, it's the one thing that I can say about this movie, in that we talked a lot about it in the last couple of films, and especially in this one. This is where Haynes as the writer is not there on the page, and he doesn't have a female writer on this again. So
he just punctuates some of these scenes with
it's visual where you can see him, but on the page not so much. I think that's where it falls for me a little bit.
Yeah, the other moment that I think is very potent in that way is towards the end. It's a total like throwaway line, but he's talking to the one of his lawyer buddies, the female lawyer. They're at, I think it's a Christmas party, and she's just like, well, I'm never going to become a partner because and it's just one of those things that just gets totally tossed off. But is that like, oh, Todd Haynes made this movie, that's right.
But also too, it feels like I say that about her character, but I kind of forgive it, because I think that this is a movie really not just about corporations destroying the world. Again, it's a movie about men destroying the world, particularly, especially men destroying this entire community of families. Like it, you've got all these guys.
Big deal about the infertility. They make they
really hit that home.
And the fact that like his grandmother is the catalyst for all of this, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that, Bill's wife, not Bill Camp's wife. Yeah, Wilbur's wife. She's like with the funeral. It's just devastating. It's just devastating. So the couple, the former DuPont worker, the couple, she's the one really driving a lot of the conversation. So like subtly all the other female characters are very present, and the people that work there. But then you notice, right, when she's saying, I'm probably not going to make partner track, right, because she's becomes pregnant, I believe.
She is
look at the room in which he's in the movie. Look at the room and who Rob is arguing against, because if you're throwing all these science and statistical facts, especially about women getting affected by all these chemicals and not being able to have babies, and it's a room full of men. It's a room full of men deciding about what another room of men should be in their punishment. And it's fascinating that angle from at least Haynes' perspective of like, yeah, men are the worst. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you all these male characters. And even Rob himself, he becomes so obsessive of this that he neglects the one thing that matters the most, which is his family, and then he neglects his health. I mean, like the health stuff was, you're just driving yourself into an early grave. And Hathaway, again with that scene with Robbins, just support his ass, just take care of him, because he's not listening to me, so you need to be there for him. She's reaching out to him in that moment. It's great.
As I'm thinking about the whole series here and Haynes at large, Haynes does find men to be creatures of fixation, I think.
Yeah.
You have, Kyle Chandler's character in Carol is just obsessed with Carol's infidelity and lifestyle. That's all. That's his entire character in that movie. You have the characters in Velvet Goldmine who are obsessed with either each other or their career paths. And this film is no different. And also
Jay, he does also make a movie about one of the biggest giant enigmas of all time in Bob Dylan. Yes. And how does he do that? But he does it with 6 different people.
6 different people, where honestly the movie is about the fixation on the man himself. It's super. I mean, Todd Haynes, interesting filmmaker. The one character that I want to point out is William Jackson Harper's character, the lawyer, who is maybe the only black character with a line in this movie. And
correct.
In that one scene where Robbins is like, we're lawyers, we're supposed to want to get DuPont, he's the one who's almost like overcompensating. And I assume Haynes did that purposefully with the only black character present in that moment, because he has to play a game by different rules, and it's just little stuff like that.
He's almost
just
towing a company line.
It's such an intelligent, thoughtful, precise movie. And that precision is something that Haynes has established over many, many years. And this is maybe the culmination of all of that. I think visually this movie is so specifically designed. And again, I think one of the things that people were so put off by when it came out is how weird this movie looks, but it's so purposeful. And
why does every place that is not covered in disease have light? Almost, in every place. Even
the fluorescent lighting in this digital photography, it's
gloomy,
sickly.
Well, it looks
yellowish.
It has this thing, I think, at least, of it has this light on it, but there's still this dark and gloom of like dirty money being attached to this corporation, right? That this law firm.
It's just like stained.
Yeah, it's stained.
Stain following them around.
Yeah, exactly. And so if it's not the diseases that are here in this community, it's the disease of greed that has surrounded them and these companies, and that they've backed these people for years, because the courtroom scenes and the bar scenes and all these places that they're doing these, dirty little deals about how they're going to shake down DuPont. It's the same way those office buildings are lit when Rob goes to work. And the only place that's actually kind of like decently lit and not corrupt throughout this entire movie is his home.
So yeah,
like it's
true.
Yeah. And so I find, and then and
that's also the place where he feels most distanced,
also like the most vulnerable, because there's when he's telling her,
he feels
the camera zooms in on Rob telling his wife about the case and everything. It doesn't even have Sarah's vantage point there until like 30 seconds in, it feels like. It's this just zoom in right on him, and he's just exhausted from reading all this data and all this stuff. And from that moment, their lives are done. It's a done deal. He is sucked into this rabbit hole, and he's the kind of lawyer that gets all encompassed and consumed, you can tell. And then there's even when they block it at the end and they're at the restaurant, and it kind of has that for a moment, and then he goes outside and it's pitch black. You know what I mean? And
I think that also the lighting in this film, it almost gives you this sense of exhaustion.
Yeah.
That mimics what he is feeling. And, the sort of dreariness of the experience he's having, but also obviously the topic at hand. Like, I think that it fits very well with its subject matter. And there's, like you said, there's like a sickly look to everything, not just whenever we're seeing sort of the environmental issues around, everything to do with DuPont, but also the sickliness of what this sort of capitalistic company has done to the courtrooms and to the office spaces and all of that as well.
Yeah. Oh, this movie's kind of a banger, guys.
This movie's great, kind of great.
Do we want to talk about?
If somebody said this is their favorite Todd Haynes movie, I'd be like, good choice. I don't know if it's mine, but I think it's that good. I think it's really, really great. Should we do a Ruffalo corner?
I was just going to ask you. I was just going to say,
you want to
talk about corner. Mark Ruffalo, or if you got a dog?
Absolutely.
Barkalow, as I like to call him. Yeah, Mark Buffalo. Even if you like to,
we're gonna grab his career by the horns. Mark Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Gruffalo.
Oh, Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo
in this movie.
Yeah, he's a little rough. The way they treat Robin, it's a little Ruffalo.
So what do we think of Ruffalo?
Ruffalo is great. He's also weird.
He's weird.
It's like he is one of the biggest weird anomalies. I can't put my finger on him, but I know I like him. Like socially, pretty good guy. he kind of is, of all the Marvel people, the only one that's figured out the formula, essentially, of the original Marvel people. Maybe Johansson too. Of like, I can do one for Marvel and then one for myself. You know, like I can play Thor 1 year, and then I can do this, or I can be in Spotlight, or I can be in, you know,
it's him and like Sebastian Stan that are doing it right in terms of
probably Scarlet.
There.
It's funny that he was also in Foxcatcher.
Yeah, he's in Foxcatcher.
He hates DuPont so much.
Well, and I also think that one thing that I admire is that, you know, Ruffalo is one of those celebrities that, or, you know, actors that does a lot of these type of movies, like we've said, but he also does the activism work to go with it. And, you know, he's sort of putting his money on the line and his mouth on the line, and he sort of is going at it from all angles, which I think is really great. You know, he's actually walking the walk. And I think he's such a fun actor in that, you know, like we said, he does these sort of serious dramas and process films. He does these Marvel movies. He also, you know, has done rom-coms. Like, he's great.
He was sort of a rom-com
13 going on 30.
He was stuck in a hole for a while. So he's worked with he's worked with people like Kenneth Lonergan, right? You Can't Count on Me. He's worked with Jane Campion.
Well, he was in Margaret, wasn't he?
Yeah. What?
He was in Margaret with Lonergan as well.
Margaret as well. He's worked with Michelle Gondry for like Eternal Sunshine, Collateral. He's worked with Michael Mann, Fincher, Ryan Johnson. He's in Where the Wild Things Are barely. So Spike Jonze. He's worked with Marty in Shutter Island.
He's in the new Bong movie.
He's going to be in the new Bong movie. He's worked with Foxcat, Bennett Miller. He's worked with, you know, he's been in Spotlight. He's been in this.
I mean, let's not forget Sean Levy.
Yeah, he's worked with Sean Levy too.
He was in the project.
But he's going to be in Lanthimos' new film.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that.
He's going to be in Poor Things. And meanwhile, he's also in like every Marvel property since every Avengers movie, at least. He's also in the Jay. I've never asked him this. So, Nicole, just wait for his response. Jay, thoughts on Now You See Me?
How much time you got, my friend? Haven't seen it.
Okay. A truly wild movie? And its sequel is much as wild?
I think I'm gonna go my whole life without seeing that one. I got to be honest.
I don't know. I feel like Louis Leterrier sounds like who Louis Leterrier is?
You know what I think is a really underrated Mark Ruffalo movie is Begin Again. I think he is
Joe Carney.
So yeah, I really love him in that movie. I think he does a really good job with that.
The one for me, I think his best performance, a movie that was absolutely reviled when it came out. In the Cut.
Oh, In the Cut.
I think is my favorite.
Him and Meg Ryan, right?
Ruffalo performance.
Meg Ryan, right?
Yes, Meg Ryan, Ruffalo, absolutely.
No.
Despicable movie.
For me, my favorite Ruffalo is Zodiac. I think he's just incredible in that movie. He's just from the beginning, like the when he gets the new partner and he's asking for the animal crackers and the guy's like, what are you talking about? He goes like, just drive. It's like, it's so sad because like he's gone through this journey of this case. That movie's a masterpiece. That movie's perfect. I love that movie.
You know, I also admire that he has worked with female directors, and that sounds like one of those the bars on the ground things.
Hey,
but there's a lot of men in Hollywood of his generation who have never worked with a female director.
Leo.
And he's worked with, like Leo. Honestly, and listen, I will call out my man, Adam Driver.
I love Driver, but
you could go through all of them. Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
The only time he worked with a female director, it ended up in a divorce.
Yeah. So, but I think that, Ruffalo has worked with a lot of directors who are not just your sort of Scorsese's and Michael Mann's and those sort of things. Like he
No, he's very
works with-
versatile.
I will say Scorsese
Yeah.
and Michael Mann pretty good.
Well, that's what I mean, though.
they're
He
pretty good at
is.
jobs. No,
Well,
but
my
he's
thing,
able
though,
to, he's
is
able to
that-
work with.
No,
he's
I'm
he's
totally,
Yeah.
I'm
he's a good
totally
enigma. He's able to like.
He doesn't
he's-
only work with the greats.
Yeah, he's very flexible. He's working with
Yeah.
everybody. You know what I mean? Like he's doing Sundance movies and then he's doing, you know, like a movie like Infinitely Polar Bear, working with a female director there. He doesn't have to do that. He's already making the Marvel money. He doesn't have to do that, but he wants to do a movie like that. He wants to
He
make
was a producer on that too, I think.
Yeah, he was. I mean, like he's able to just do oh my god, yeah, he is going to be a Mickey 17, the Bong Joon-ho film. I forgot about that. But he's actually kind of very smart at picking his projects. I mean, honestly, if he's one of the more interesting and best parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
He's I mean, I would shatter to believe what Edward Norton would have probably done to kill himself to get out of that role, but he's even great in that first Avengers movie as Bruce Banner, and he's had fun moments along the way. I always feel like when Mark Ruffalo shows up, I know I'm going to get something good at least out of him. I'm never cheated out of Mark.
Yeah.
It's him, Stanley Tucci, only a couple actors that I feel like every time I see
good neighbor, Ruffalo's there.
Exactly. Because I feel like, but this performance feels like Haynes gets to showcase all of that. It feels like it's been a while since he's had a lead performance where he gets to just dominate the screen. Because like he had that mini series in 2020 with Derek C. in France where he plays like the two people.
Like a twin.
Yeah, he's got I know this to be true.
Saw that.
I heard that show was so bleak. And of course I was like, oh, Derek C. in France, the director of Blue Valentine, made a new thing. Of course it's going to be bleak. But yeah, it's been a long time since I think Begin Again, like you're mentioning, Nicole, where he's at least a co-lead in that movie. And so this is like 6 years and like 10 projects in between. And Haynes always gets great lead performances. There's never unless you're Jonathan Rhys Meyers.
Great actress director, for sure.
Yeah. Unless you're Jonathan Rhys Meyers in Velvet Goldmine. That's not a good lead.
Okay. Well,
true.
You can't work miracles.
Uh-oh.
At least you understand. Like I wasn't saying anything. We're not very pro Jonathan Rhys Meyers.
Well, who else?
I'm very anti Jonathan Rhys Meyers. I'll go that far.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we go anti. We're just like confused as to why it was a thing. But like
I've heard some things about what he was like on sets that make me
it makes sense why he's where he's at then, if that's
you don't get to be untalented and an asshole.
He's not Jonathan Rhys admired.
For everybody out there, if you don't know by now, Jay is a dad. All right, he actually has a son.
And let me tell you, on those lines, wasn't a dad when I saw this movie the first time. Am a dad now.
The father of a son.
Woo!
Let
me tell you, these little moments hit you pretty hard.
I
mean,
makes you never want to cook on a stovetop again.
Ruffalo shows the CEO of DuPont the picture of Bucky.
Oh man,
that's potent. And then
him walking back to his car. Did that not terrify
the parking deck?
Yeah, did that not terrify the shit out of you?
Yeah, where they do the insider thing.
Yeah, where they do the
where
pretty much
in the car.
Yeah, the 3 in the Condor kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as a dad, I mean, you hear those moments where they're like, "Oh, we wanted a third kid, but we couldn't have one because of C8." It's like, man, the things that were taken away from people because of this, and the things that people had to go through, that infants had to go through because of this, and who knows how many young children died because of this or didn't exist because of this. It's frightening. And especially when they just talk about when they're in that scene where they're in the kitchen and they're like, oh, by the way, yeah, your kid is in trouble at school, your other son quit football. It's like, man, I can't imagine being that absent, but he's doing the things that he's doing to the detriment of his kids is like this super important work. But then while he's doing this important work, all that he's doing is getting crap from everybody involved. He goes back to what's called Parkersburg. He goes back and everybody is like, guess what, man? Nobody can get a job in this town anymore.
Oh, that scene where Bill Camp goes with his buddy. Is it his brother or his work buddy or whatever? They go to the diner and that they've gone to every single day. And because they brought these lawyers in there, everybody's turned their back on him. And, you've seen that scene hundreds of times, probably in movies like this. You know what I mean? Know that scene, like when I just said that, everybody's mind went to like a movie that did that. This movie, though, because it's real, because it feels so like this issue, what I love about this movie is this issue feels so small, but yet it is a wider problem. And that's what's so great about it. So it starts there in the community, and it expands the idea into something that's global. And so from that point of the movie, this is a small town problem. And so these guys aren't going to get their eggs in toast the same way as they have before, because they're going to affect the livelihood of all the people that are working there until those people are part of the study. And then that becomes the bigger problem in the second act of the film of trying to get the damn study results out. And it took, like 8 years for that to happen?
Crazy.
And they're bleeding money. He's bleeding his salary, and he just keeps having to take cuts, which then leads to his heart attack, right? And I mean,
or whatever it is, it was neurological, wasn't it?
Yeah, neurological or whatnot. His episode, yes. But it's again, then it becomes larger, and that's what I love about this movie. It's organically building it from, much like The Case, the ground up, the amount of urgency that is required for the audience to buy into as the film's going on, because it starts off like these kids in the water, and it's like Jaws. You know what I mean? Where it's like they're just gone in the water, like, hey, you kids, get out of there. And the monster, the shark, is the chemical company.
Yeah, or it's like Zodiac.
It's like it's like Zodiac, where they kind of all start with like, oh, it's very innocent to start off, and like they're just having a good time. No, get out of the water because you're contaminated for the rest of your life.
When they're like, kids, get out of there, and then you just start spraying that crap in the water.
And you're like, whoo. And they've been doing that every day.
Yeah.
For their job. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. And what? I'll tell you this. Okay. The cheesiest element of the entire movie is probably the I Won't Back Down post credits, or the credits song. I cried. I got to tell you. I don't know. I mean, it was.
Good use of the scroll, by the way.
It's
at the end.
Well, you know what? Yeah, the post credits text is fascinating because normally, and we were talking about Aaron Brockovich, the big triumphant moment of Aaron Brockovich is when they get the settlement. And in this movie, it's like, oh, by the way, they also got the settlement, but that's not what's important. And this fight isn't over because this stuff is still allowed. And this is a drop in the bucket as far as
this is one chemical.
This system is concerned. Yeah. It's a systematic problem that goes far beyond the scope of this, but we have one guy who's trying to fight it at the sacrificing so much in his life and his family's life. And you really start to wonder, like, when do you stop? Right. And he refuses to stop. He won't back down. And the fact that it was the Johnny Cash cover. I just think about that era of Johnny Cash
where he was just like,
every song he made had this
anger,
stoked in anger and sadness and a certain level of bitterness, and kind of accepting his soon to be fate, that I just get chills with anything he kind of made during that time. And I don't know, that to me was the one, like, really sent chills down my spine little moment of that movie. And it's also the cheesiest moment. There are other times where I'm horrified, but that is one moment where I'm just like, man, maybe there is some good in humanity, I guess. But other than that, bleak movie.
No, it truly is. And I agree with you, Jay. The final text crawl is perfect. Needle drop, kind of on the nose, but kind of purpose. It's like the only thing that's on the nose, but like, yeah.
Exactly. That's
Petty
what it
wouldn't have
is.
worked. The use of Johnny Cash there totally does. And yeah, like I love that era Cash. Like him and like Hurt, all those songs. Yeah, it's just great.
The Hurt cover, when that story of Reznor hearing that song and he's just like, oh, this isn't my song anymore.
No, it's Johnny Cash's song.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. Nicole, do you have anything else about Dark Waters?
I don't think so. Just that I think that it's a real shame that I don't remember when it dropped calendar wise, but
Ooh, that's a good question. I've got that statistic.
Yeah, it really felt like it got overshadowed
November
by
22nd.
Okay, I thought it was like a holiday-ish release, and it's not really a holiday film.
I think so.
So
you don't think? Well, I mean, at the Ackman house, it is.
Have some turkey and sweet potatoes, and go hit the theater.
Not made in a Teflon pan.
I was going to say not made in Teflon.
And yeah, so I feel like it just maybe came out at a bad time. I don't know what came out around it, like that it got so overshadowed. And I really hope it's one that ends up with sort of a better like shelf life in terms of people watching it, you know, now. And I think that it's a really interesting type, like a really interesting entry into the sort of subgenre that it fits within. And also it's telling a really important story that also makes some very important larger points about, you know, the society that we live in and the things that corporations are able to get away with, and what trying to fight that does to people like, you know, Robert. And I just think it's such a shame that it sort of didn't get its due when it came out. And, you know, shout out to Jay for championing it.
Let's go.
I know what
Hive, rise up.
I know what movies came out the weekend it came out. Okay, so 21 Bridges, which was the Chadwick Boseman.
You gotta close those bridges.
You gotta close them. It's becoming a real problem not closing those bridges.
You gotta close all those bridges so they can't get off the island.
They can't. Close all the boroughs, all the bridges, lift them up. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Yeah, which
this movie is better than that.
I was going to say the polar opposite of what this movie is.
In some ways, though, I do feel like it maybe pulled the sort of thoughtful
families.
Adult audience. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I like that movie, but
I like that movie too.
Very
different than this.
Frozen 2.
Oh well, there it went.
Frozen 2.
The week it goes, movie. The weekend went into limited. Ford v Ferrari.
Oh well, that's where all the dads were.
That was where all the dads were. And then
in a perfect world, Barbenheimer, the old version of Barbenheimer, was Frozen Waters.
Yes. But then the week of November 20, that's of course November 22nd, and then the week before was November 15th. The 27th was then when Knives Out came out, so it had no shot. It had no shot.
God.
Yeah, it had no shot.
Listen,
that is a block of great cinema
Waters,
for the most part.
Frozen Waters, though, that could have been a thing. Like,
we could have done it.
Let's go see a movie about like the horrors of capitalism. And then go see one about the horrors of colonialism, because that's the underlying thing in Frozen 2. Like, let's do it.
It was of the month. It made $23 million worldwide, $11 million, I believe.
But here's the thing: it's his third highest grossing movie ever.
Yeah, that's really not bad, actually.
Wow. That's why he doesn't.
I would assume it's also his highest budgeted.
That's the thing, is I don't know a budget. Sure. Yeah, it was kind of hard doing the research today to try to find. I mean, I can go on the old IMDb real quick. This is what the listeners want to hear. Me searching. No, I can't find a budget for this thing, which is kind of crazy. But I've been looking for it. Can't find it. Maybe DuPont's hiding it. We'll never know. All right. Well, that's our review of what is that? Dark Waters. That's right.
Dark Waters.
So
Frozen Waters.
Jay, Before we get out of here, we're going to test your award season knowledge.
Let's do it.
Based on the film we just reviewed, which was Dark Waters, in a segment that we like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm going to ask you, do you know how many Oscar nominations this got?
I'm thinking 0.
Okay. Do you know how many Golden Globe nominations it got?
I think you're asking that because it got 1.
Am I?
Did it? I don't know. Did it get 0? I'm saying 0.
That is correct. How many Critics' Choice nominations did it get, Jay?
0.
How many SAG Awards?
Oh, it killed at the SAGs. 15 noms.
This thing got like barely any nominations throughout the year.
Wait, okay, hold on.
It was
okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I looked this up after I'd watched it, and my favorite thing about the like awards section on its Wikipedia page is that it has the fact it did win 2 awards, and it won Best Feature Film and the Environmental Media Award.
Wow.
And then it won Best American Values Film of 2019 at the Republican Values Center Film Awards.
Son of a bitch.
And those are the 2 that it won that are listed.
Honestly, Nicole just did the best research that you could.
How did it do?
Extremely for Todd Haynes, the most homophobic research that you could possibly do as a gay filmmaker.
How does something win the Republican Values Award and the Environmental Media Award?
Did they not get? Is it that they didn't get the joke? Like, it's like they didn't understand that this was not a movie it's not shining a good light on their quote unquote values, because they're on the side of DuPont, for Christ's sake.
They heard that accent and they said, voted in.
Man, Republican, they must have been acting like a Green Book situation that year, where they think that they're doing good, but they're actually doing bad. Anyway, what were you saying, Jay?
How did it do at the Cool Kid Chemical Film Awards presented by DuPont?
I think it was ineligible.
Oh,
Would you have nominated this for anything, Jay?
Yeah, everything. I'm looking at the I'm looking at the list now. I mean, I'd nominated for Best Picture over at least half of these nominees.
Yeah.
At least half of them?
I like it more than Parasite, even though I love Parasite. But
wow, that is a bold statement.
I like it more than Parasite. I like it more than Ford v Ferrari. I like it 10,000 times more than Jojo Rabbit. I like it 8,000 times more than Joker. I like it more than Marriage Story. I like it 500 times more than 1917. Yeah, I would absolutely put it in there.
But you would keep Hollywood. So the untouchables for you are Irishman, Little Women, and Hollywood?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I'm kicking out Jonathan Pryce. Sorry. 2 popes. You're out.
No, my thing with actor is that I would kick out anyone other than
Joaquin.
Adam Driver to put Mark Ruffalo in there.
No, I'm not kicking out Leo. Leo's too good.
Am. Oh,
and Banderas.
Banderas is freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, Banderas is incredible. I that was my winner.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying I'm getting rid of all of them. I'm saying if you told me I could have Banderas or Ruffalo, I'm picking Ruffalo.
No, I'm telling you can kick out Joaquin Phoenix and you can put in Mark Ruffalo, and that's all you need to do.
I think I prefer Banderas and Leo over Ruffalo, but everybody else.
Yeah, you can. I mean, and like Driver. Sorry, it's just not my favorite performance from him, and I don't like that.
And
I love that performance.
The other probably hot take.
He's probably the best one in the film.
I would put it in cinematography.
It's in cinematography.
I think it's some of the most purposeful, important
1917
of the film cinematography.
1917, Irishman, Joker, The Lighthouse.
I mean, look, I think 1917 is some gimmicky cinematography that takes away from the movie.
I love Deakins. I love Deakins, but
I love Deakins. I mean, I'd take away
Joker.
I'd kick out Joker and put this in.
I mean, I would take it over.
Honestly, The Lighthouse is such an inspired choice. It's such an inspired nomination.
I might like it more than all of those.
I'm not taking out Big Bob Richardson.
No, you can pick one, and I think we'd probably go Joker.
Yeah.
How did Parasite not get nominated for cinematography? Honestly, how did Portrait of a Lady Now on Fire not get nominated for cinematography?
Well,
How did Joker get nominated?
Crime.
How did Joker get nominated for so much?
Joker's got decent texts.
Yes, because they're
Joker's
just
got some great
copying
purple weekend
texts that have come before.
Yeah,
they're just they were just like, Marty, do you got any leftover costumes and aesthetic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, it's a good imitation.
I think it's fine.
I mean, the movie's bad, but
yeah,
movie's bad. Yeah, to be clear, we're not endorsing the film.
What else we got here?
I might think about editing.
I'd give it
editing.
Editing. Do you know what I'd take out of editing?
Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark Waters is how I could fix the Oscars Joker problem.
Yeah.
Do y'all like Jojo Rabbit?
It's not aged. It's not aged well for me, just because. I'm sorry, I'm out on Taika. I've been out on it for like a couple
Jojo Rabbit.
Years.
I do, but partially because I like Roman Griffin Davis's performance and Thomasin McKenzie's performance in it.
She's
quite
great.
a lot. Yeah.
I
also really like ScarJo in it. I
like Scarlett more in that than I do in Marriage Story.
I think it is some of ScarJo's best work.
You know who was really great in Marriage Story? Nobody ever gave me any credit.
Ghost in the Shell.
No. Leota. Leota was great in that movie.
Yeah. You know who I love in Marriage Story? Alan Alda.
Yeah, Alda was great.
I also love Alan Alda in all things, but actually, I think that the whole what would you call them? Like not even secondary cast, like third billing, like Merritt Weaver in Marriage Story, incredible. The scene where they're trying to serve him the papers.
Yeah, that's better than anything Laura Dern did in that movie.
Well, Laura Dern, they actually just messed up, and that should have said Little Women.
Little Women.
So
it's the
Laura Dern is so hot in Marriage Story. Like
just Marriage Story, Jay?
Laura Dern all-time crush for me. I've
yeah.
I have said that no one has looked better in a movie than she looks in Wild at Heart.
Yeah. She's pretty incredible.
And she's maintained it.
Yeah.
I'm happy for her. And I'm happy for us to get to take it in.
What a woman.
Was this an adapted screenplay?
Yeah, from the New York Times article.
Yeah, right. From the article. Yeah,
well, we can kick out the popes.
Get those popes out of here.
Can I also kick out
popes? Too many.
I would leave in the popes
plenty.
And kick out Joker.
Oh, Joker's in there. We can kick out
because Joker. I think that actually in Dark Waters would be a perfect
Nicole doesn't like
Joker with, because Joker is a film that thinks it's saying a lot and is saying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And Dark
That's
Waters
why
is
I didn't understand why everybody got so pissed off about Joker. I'm like, this is
what we're getting.
This is nothing.
No, I get you. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, because like when it came out, sorry, Nicole, I didn't mean to cut you off, but but like when that movie came out and like they had security guards fucking like we were going into a concert, I'm like, this movie is like a basic surface level. Like when I was done, I was like, this is what we're getting all upset about.
The reason we all had to get upset about it is because there is a certain breed of, I'll say it, incel, who latched onto things in that movie that weren't even necessarily there.
Yeah.
But the movie is not smart enough to not make the statements it doesn't mean to make. And
I'm not ready for next year.
Honestly, I gotta say, Nicole's making me rethink. I think I like Joker.
Stop it. I would take out Hopkins and I would put in.
See, you can't. That doesn't
work,
Jay, because you have a wife.
Oh, dang.
And the men who love Joker, don't get female attention.
That's
but anyways,
shots fired.
Dark Waters,
Joker loving listeners,
is a movie that really actually is saying
Phillips
something.
Series.
Yeah, it's important. Remember when they nominated important things?
But it is. But the thing about it is, there are all these important movies that are playing to your sense of empathy. The thing that is so powerful about this movie is at the end they're like, oh, by the way, this is impacting you directly.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? One last thing, actually.
Yeah.
Is even though this is not an Anne Hathaway performance that I like love, if this is the only changes I get to make to this Oscars, I'm gonna nominate her so I can get rid of Kathy Bates. No offense to Kathy Bates herself, and Richard Jewell.
That's not the person.
She's so good in Richard Jewell. We were talking Clint before the pod. I got to stand up for Ricky Jewell.
I am honestly
is a good movie.
Honestly, Nicole, I don't think that Bates is my problem in that category. I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this. I don't ever understand why Margot Robbie got nominated for Bombshell. That is a like nothing performance from her, and
it is insulting to her talent as an actress that that's what she got nominated for.
Like, I know this is
Barbie.
Time of recording is in August. The way it's shaping up right now,
nomination.
Well, it's her best performance.
I think she
my
should.
opinion. I'm there. I'm already there. I'm already there now about Barbie. I think that's her best performance as a lead. As a lead, it's her best
as a lead.
Yes,
yeah. As a lead performance, yes. I still think her best performance is Mary Queen of Scots.
I think she's really good in Wolf of Wall Street. I know that some people don't like this performance or don't get the subtlety, but I think she's really good in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's actually her better performances from
Babylon.
No.
Yeah.
There's a gang forming around me. The Babylon crew is assembling. Yeah. We will become.
I will say I would kick her out, and I would kick out Anthony Hopkins, and I would put in Bill Camp. Bill Camp
I could see big Billy Camp in here.
Bill Camp feels like you know what he feels like?
Freedom.
Oh God, is he really?
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
Stop it, Jay. Stop bringing up bad anecdotes on the show.
You know what? He during this time he was on fire.
Yeah.
Do you remember how good he was in The Queen's Gambit?
Oh, he was really good in that.
He is unreal, and also The Night of. He's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, like Bill Camp's nomination would remind me of like when Richard Jenkins got nominated for The Visitor back in like 2008, where like character actor that gets what he deserves, put in a really great performance. We don't talk about it enough. We don't do that enough. Like something I still am kind of mind blown that he doesn't have a nomination is John Goodman. John Goodman doesn't have a nomination.
Goodman has never been nominated for an Oscar.
Never been nominated for an Oscar. And I thought, and there was a little bit of like a rumbling for him to get nominated in like 10 Cloverfield Lane, but like
that movie was never going to get nominated for an Oscar.
No, but his performance could have. It's a great performance. I know. Yeah, I mean,
he should have been nominated for Speed Racer.
Oh, I mean, Susan Sarandon should have been nominated for Speed Racer.
I think the whole cast should have.
Well, not everybody.
The monkey could have gotten in for supporting.
Would you have nominated Haynes in director? Would you kick that Todd Phillips?
Oh yeah.
Put in Todd Haynes.
The thing is, you can basically kick out Joker for anything and be like, yeah, Dark Water's better.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. I mean,
makeup
if you were asking for what was my 5, maybe he's right on the fringe, but
okay.
Certainly of that crew, yeah.
Celine is your winner that year for your personal. For Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah.
No, I remember because when we've done that.
I mean, I'm thinking, you're right. Your ideas can change over time, but I think I would say, yeah, because
that's still your favorite movie of the year.
I need to.
Nicole, what was your favorite movie of 2019?
I think that is.
I cannot believe you're asking me that question, Ryan.
I'm sorry. Oh, there's Little Women. Duh.
My favorite movie of all time is
Little Women. Duh.
So yeah.
Mine was and still is Hollywood.
Imagine if you said Joker.
Imagine like me just like pull off my mask like I'm in a Mission Impossible movie and reveal that it was Joker. No, it's still Hollywood.
You say Joker and somewhere your marriage certificate like disintegrates.
That was actually a freaking great year.
For movies? Yeah. And then you know what happened? A pandemic afterwards. That's what we got.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Uncut Gems, Little Women, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Irishman, Parasite, The Lighthouse, Sound of Metal, Ad Astra.
No, Sound of Metal. Glory. No, Sound of Metal was the next year, 2020.
Oh. It must have premiered that year somewhere. It's on.
It was at TIFF, and then it got held
Letterboxd.
Yeah.
First Cow, was that the next year too? Or
next year? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
great stuff. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on and doing this wild episode with us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you mind telling everybody where we can find all your work and you on the internet?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter as long as it exists, Instagram, Letterboxd, all the places, Venmo, at Nicole Ackman 16. I'm throwing out there in case anyone's interested. No, but you also can find my work at AwardsWatch. And if you are interested, you also can find me over on Substack these days. I've just started a Substack to talk about history related things. So maybe occasionally some movies, but also historic sites, historic topics, history books, historical fiction, all those kind of things. And you can just find that it is under Nicole Ackman 16 as well.
Go follow Nicole. Go follow all of her stuff. She's amazing. And when she has stuff on the site, read it. Do it. Thank you, Nicole. J-Dog.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Where can we find you and your work, sir?
Oh, you can find me on OnlyFans at Ryan McQuade.
No.
And
damn you.
You can find me on Twitex, whatever we're calling it these days, at Mr. J Ledbetter. You can find me on Letterboxd at J Ledbetter. And you can find me at your local library stumping for Dark Waters.
Okay. You can also read his stuff on awardswatch.com as well as other websites. Just follow him. You'll get all that stuff. You can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever. Instagram, Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. And you can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. And if you're following those social media platforms, you could probably find all the other work that I'm doing. And that's it for our Todd Haynes series. So if we lose you as a listener, I apologize. Wow. But we are starting a new series next week. And next week we will be talking about the films of Denis Villeneuve in anticipation of his new film.
We got to figure out exactly how to pronounce his name.
Villeneuve?
I think it's Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve? Well, we got a week to figure it out.
We sure do.
Next week, we will be starting with his film Incendies, and we will be reviewing all the films leading up to Dune Part 2. That's if it releases in theaters. If it doesn't, well, we still have we'll talk about then Dune 2 next year. But we're going to talk about his movies, and I'm looking forward to it. Jay and I haven't done a lot of sit down and talks about those movies, and it's been a while for some of those rewatches. So
more like Denisville snooze.
So I can't wait to talk about them starting next week with you, Jay, and we'll have guests throughout the series as well. But thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.